Hey everyone, it's Morgan, and welcome back to my channel. It has definitely been a while, but I'm actually back with a bachelor's degree in general fine arts, and I am extremely excited to show you all the things I've learned and all the things I've done in this time. With that being said, this video utilizes some older footage from, I think 2022, honestly, but it was just this incredible drawing that inspired me to do a whole lot of other things, so there was no way that I was gonna not use the footage that I had from it. So follow along with me here, but this is a Sphynx portrait of a hairless cat that is going to be completed in completely black and white, only charcoal. For this drawing, I'm using tone gray Canson paper, which was around 19 by 25 inches, I believe, but I'm pretty sure right at the end I cropped it just a little bit off the sides. At this point in the video, I'm still just working on refining the sketch and then kind of erasing a bit of it to, pave the way for the charcoal that's about to come in. In hyperrealism drawings, which is exactly what this is going to be, the sketch is one of the most important aspects of the piece since it lays the foundation for the rest of the drawing. Once I begin going in with charcoal and stuff like that, it's a lot harder to change the skeletal frame of the drawing later on in my process. Before we get super into this white charcoal that I'm starting to apply, I also want to take a moment to note that you may have noticed that I'm also drawing freehand, so that delays my process a little bit in the sketching aspects, since I know a lot of other artists like to use grid systems or different ways of kind of nailing that proportion really quickly, but I freehand it all, so it's trial and error for me. What I'm doing right now is honestly what most of this first half of the video ends up being. In hyperrealism, the layering process is also extremely crucial to your overall piece, so I'm kind of just mapping it out for myself right now. The marks that I'm making are more of just mental reminders for me that this is where I need to go back in later, this is where the layers are going to begin. It's just kind of stuff that's going to get all covered up and blended out anyway. So it looks really patchy and really rough and a little scary, but that's just because it has so much change left to undergo. The next thing that I'll take out is the paper blending stump, also known as a tortillon. It really helps blend the layers together and just give you that soft feel to it, and it also helps to hide the grain of the paper that you're pretty clearly able to see while I'm putting down the charcoal. Because this drawing is so large scale, I'll do this a couple times in one area, like the left ear is where I started, so I'll apply a couple layers and then blend throughout and just start to lay the foundation for the whole ear. And then once I got a little bit bored of this section, I would move on to another one and start with that first layer, and then go backwards, and then go layer on the ear again. And I just kind of traveled between sections of the drawing rather than attacking the whole thing at one time. It was also because I was a little nervous to smear the charcoal, which is why you'll see I have that loose paper that's kind of following my hand around. It's very easy to smear charcoal, especially on larger drawings where you need to use the same part of the drawing for support of your hand. So around now is when I move over to the next ear, and then I'll just do the same thing where I start with the white charcoal and just kind of map out the highlights and allow myself to start to see the shape of the ear. And then I'll start filling things in with vine charcoal and go right back to blending. And I just keep repeating the steps of this process until I'm able to really start seeing the drawing for what it's going to be. In full honesty, this is the bulk of the process, is just creating these layers and just continuing to blend them out and really just playing around with them until you get the shape and the shading that you are looking for. The way that the vine charcoal and the white charcoal react together when I'm blending them, that's when that gray color is created, is the two materials actually working together with each other to make that new color. So that's another thing that I'm playing around with, is seeing how much vine charcoal is creating how dark of a shadow. And then at a certain point, I'll be unsatisfied with the intensity of the vine charcoal, and that's when I'll go and switch to the compressed pencil charcoal, because I'm just working very slowly and very diligently at building up these shadows and making them look believable and deep. At this point in the process, I'm not too worried about the texture that I'm starting to create with these materials, since that's something that's going to come into play much later in the drawing, and I end up tackling texture kind of all at once, since I mentioned previously that it's very easy to mess up charcoal while you're still working on it. So it was important to me to just kind of get everything laid down and keep everything nice and smooth and blended out. And then I was going to worry a lot more about the wrinkles and the textures a bit later. I also was working on this drawing for one of my classes in art college, so you will notice there's a couple like skips in the progress of this piece. There's one coming up right now, but that's just because I did a little bit of the drawing outside of the camera's watch. Away from the camera, I obviously started to tackle the neck of the cat, and that is honestly the most intense shadow in the entire piece, so it was kind of weird to start drawing. If you can tell where the chin of the cat starts to fade away into the shadows of the neck, it like completely blends together in my reference photo. So it ends up becoming this like solid black, but then there's just a little bit of gray on the cat's chin, and I had no idea how to attack that yet, so I just used compressed charcoal to start putting in that intense shading so that I'd be able to like mentally see that and revisit it again later. And I think that's one of my favorite parts about attempting to do such a large drawing, is that if I'm a little confused by one area or a little sick of what I'm doing, meh, just skip it for now. I'll move on to another area and just get like refueled with that motivation. Okay, this is a fresh area, let me go crazy on this, and then maybe I will feel inspired enough to tackle that other area again. And then, whoa, holy shrimp, did you blink? Because now I can see that, can you? So clearly this was one of those times where I ended up making a lot of progress in class, and while that's good for me, that's not as good for my explanation of this video. So at this point, while I have sustained a very minor finger injury as well, now I'm finally working on the details, so at least this is the very interesting part. But you'll see me switching between smaller blending stumps and larger blending stumps, as well as the vine charcoal, the compressed charcoal, and the white charcoal. At this point in my process, I have all of my materials right next to me, and I'm switching between them like crazy. This point is around layer 3 or 4 of the drawing, so I'm starting to put in some of those final details and working on the textures and like really intensifying the shadows and making sure that all the gradients are blended out correctly and realistically. The rest of the drawing at this point is just being consistent with those layers. At this point, now we're looking at maybe 7, 8 layers of charcoal on top of each other. Any of the times that I'd be unhappy with something, I could just layer more on top. So we're getting to that point where everything is just super intense, getting more and more believable, which makes me so happy. And now is when I'm really honing in on those textures and starting to like work on the very fine details, and I'm sticking my face so close into the drawing, and it's all starting to feel really real to me now. The facial textures on this feline were just so interesting to me. The wrinkles got so deep and so foldy, but then at the same time the bridge of the nose had all these like speckles and highlights and just little moments where the cat's skin was like glimmering in a way. So interesting to me to try to replicate, and definitely something that I would love to do this again. Especially since at this point in 2024, I'm like at least 2 years out from this drawing. I already see like ways that I would improve and things that I would do again in a slightly different way. So I guess just like my main point of this is that there's no perfect way to be drawing. There's no right way, no wrong way. It's just your own personal journey and what you learn from it along the way. I was really happy with this at the end, and I thought it was the best thing I had ever done at that point. And then that became like a personal goal for me. Okay, let's draw something even better than this Sphynx. Let's draw something I'm even more proud of. So just keep in mind that like your personal art journey is your personal art journey, and it's going to look different from other people's, and no matter what you do, when you're looking back at your drawings, you're going to feel some sort of way. That's almost inevitable. As I added in the white gel pen and all of the final highlights to the kitty, it was finally time to do the background. So I did actually have a plan to make the entire background completely black, which would be done with the compressed charcoal since that was the more intense black color that I could get. But woohoo, that was a challenge. Lining my now finished cat without messing it up at all. Whew, stress factors all the way up through the ceiling, I swear. But on a slightly different note, this whole video was just about me kind of explaining just some little tips and tricks about my process and like how I personally handle things. But let me know, please, if you'd like to see a comprehensive tutorial of anything, if you'd like further explanation on any of the techniques and details that I was sharing. I'm really happy to say anything else about this drawing or any of my other drawings or just anything of that nature. Please let me know what you'd like to hear, and I'm happy to deliver. Haha. And with that, I'd like to say thank you so much for visiting my channel, returning to my channel, looking at it at all. And please let me know in the comments if there's anything missing from this video you would have loved to have seen, or any other thing that you want me to talk to you about, because I'm here and I'm happy to do anything. Thank you!